Hey everyone, it's your girl Nachi, and I'm here with.
Damaris, your number one Harlem prepper.
And our special guest is Mark Hurst. He's the founder of Creative Good, a technology consulting firm with expertise in the impact of technology on society and the customer's experience. We're so happy to have you here, Mark. Welcome.
Nachi, thank you so much, and thank you, Damaris. It's great to be here.
Yes. So, Mark, you have such a great understanding of technology and human behavior and how and worked with many companies across different industries, but you do so much more to bring awareness to the public. So do you want to share a little bit about yourself to our listeners?
Sure. I've been working as a consultant for over 25 years through my company, Creative Good. It's a New York-based consulting firm, as you said. And what I do is I try to advise teams on how to make products and services better for customers and their families and their communities. Because I think if you actually make things better for people in the long run, that benefits the business as well as everybody else. In addition to the consulting, I have been writing an email newsletter, which is just general interest about technology and its impacts on all of us. And that's also at creativegood.com. That's a free email newsletter. It's one of the longest running email newsletters in the world. I've been writing it for over 25 years.
Wow.
Same newsletter. And
So that
I
was when
also
email was invented.
Yes. Well, before that, I was inscribing it on stone tablets. But believe me, it was a great day when they invented email. Um,
Yeah.
and I also host a weekly radio show at a independent nonprofit radio station, which is based in Jersey City, across the river from New York. The station is called WFMU. And on this radio show, which is called Tectonic, I interview authors and journalists and other thinkers and innovators to talk about how technology is affecting us. So I've been running that show for just over 6 years. I'm coming up soon on my 300th episode. And that also gets rolled out as a podcast. So that's, if people look up Tectonic with Mark Hurst, TECH Tonic with Mark Hurst on any podcast platform, they can listen in. And that's totally free, non-advertised. And I do that as a volunteer project.
Nice. Well, we're really excited to have you here. And as we were talking before the show started, I've attended your gel conferences, and as I shared with you already, they were amazing. It was inspirational and really was about helping to shift my mindset personally about how I approach customer service and the customer experience. But it wasn't like it was foreign to me in the sense that it made sense because I personally like to think that I move in integrity. And so, really, to me, at the core of what you shared was always about integrity, right? How you, uh, the respect for humanity, if you will. And that to me always came across. So, I appreciate and thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Give you your
I
flowers.
appreciate you saying that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the GEL conference was a series of events I ran from 2003 through 2016 in New York City. We had one event in Copenhagen, but otherwise all the events were in New York, and I tried to spotlight a very diverse set of talent and creativity on stage from many different fields. All, I think you stated it very well, all with the theme of how do we create experiences that are actually good for people, and not exploitative or deceptive, using
Right.
slash and burn tactics.
Mhm.
And I thought, if I could just get good, talented people on stage to model for everyone how we should be building products, services, and experiences, of course, the rest of the world will follow along, because it's all going to be one big happy family here pretty soon. And
Oh, you're
then,
so cute.
yeah, wasn't I?
That's what Big Tech said.
That's
Big Tech said with the villain laugh.
exactly. And then big tech happened, and now
Right.
on my radio show, I'm not saying naive things like that. I'm often on my radio show, I lose my ever-loving mind and just start screaming into the mic about how bad things have gotten.
You just
But I
want
I
to
think,
know.
shake
Actually,
people.
yeah,
yeah, no, that's why we invited you on the show because I think it aligns a lot with what we try to share with our listeners, really about, okay, how do you thrive in this world? And for me, it really is about having control and agency over your life and living, living your best to your ability, right? Like, how do you vibrate higher? And to me, we're so inundated with technology and its role in our lives, and it's just like it just kind of feels like we're losing some power and some control over that. And I want to get into that because I think you share a very uh, unique perspective, and maybe it's not unique. I think because Nachi and I kind of share it too. So I'd love to hear about how you feel the role of technology and how it plays into society now, and what should it be doing? What role should it actually be playing?
yeah, that's a great opening question. Um, the technology sector right now is the most powerful and wealthy sector of business in human history. And collectively, I usually call them big tech. These, depending on how you count the 4 or 5 or 6 big companies, generally the five people talk about are Facebook, which recently rebranded to Meta, which I don't like saying the word Meta. Let's just call them Facebook.
Right.
Amazon, Apple, Google, which tried to hide under their new moniker Alphabet, but let's
Alphabet.
call them
Yeah.
Google. Yes, and Microsoft. Some people throw Netflix in there as well, although for a couple of reasons, I don't usually lump Netflix in. So if we just say Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, those five uh, occupy just their. I think 4 of them are over $1 trillion. I think only Facebook is not quite $1 trillion company. And I think Apple is well over $2 trillion. I mean, it's just
Goodness.
the amount of wealth and influence that these companies have in the economy and our society and our culture, and not to mention other verticals: education, healthcare, automotive, retail, media. We could list them all out. All of them are central to the operation and development of all those areas of the economy, and that filters into our individual lives and the lives of our families and the lives of our communities around the country and around the world. And my basic position in my writing and in my broadcasting is that it is wrong to have so much power and influence concentrated into so few hands. And this is not unique to 2023 or big tech. I mean, if you go back through human history, whenever there is an outsized concentration of power into very few hands, bad things happen. Always. In fact, the whole reason this country was founded and was founded with democratic principles was to break the chokehold of concentration of power
Mhm.
politically. So what are we doing here in this country that we have allowed so much power to be assigned to these companies and this very small set of senior leaders and investors? And we can talk about what's gone wrong. But I think that's the root of the power. The root of the problem is the concentration of power. The other question you asked is, what should technology be doing? And
Right.
I would say technology should be doing anything but trying to grow its power base.
Right.
Technology can be and should be a force for good in the world. Ever since we figured out how to cook meat over a fire, and that allowed us to gain more complex types of nutrition to to help in our development, from Paleolithic times, technology has been something that has helped advance our lives, healthcare, transportation, entertainment, education. All those things have been immeasurably helped by technology. But I feel like in the last 10 or 15 years, this runaway train of big tech and its growth at any cost, concentration of power, has started to dim the possibilities of technology as the technology has been instrumented into a power grab rather than serving us in our communities for the good.
Yeah, it's funny because I've always viewed tech as a means to make our lives more efficient, easier, freeing up our time. But also in doing that, it's kind of just increased our consumption, right? Of more information, of buying more stuff, and not really necessarily always making our lives easier or more efficient. It's like, well, now I have to do something else to continue to support this. I don't know. That's just something that I've picked up on, um, the way from where how I used to view technology. But to your point of this concentration of power, it is daunting and it is a little scary sometimes when you think about it, how much connection there is between all of these companies too, and the importance of our data with that. And
I feel like a lot of our information is out there, and now our privacy is a bigger issue than it was, I feel like, in the past. I, I can't count the number of times I probably received a letter saying, "Oh, there's been a breach in," and I'm like,
Yep.
"What?" And then,
seriously,
and the funny thing is, it's like I don't even remember either signing up or using a specific service. It might have been years before, and then I get this letter of, "There's been a breach in our system and your information is out." And I'm like, "Oh crap!" this it's beyond stressful and overwhelming to even think about the amount of data that's out there and how it's being used and spread and shared with third parties. That's the scariest part for me. And I know a lot of the times, like, we sign up for things, we use these services, online to make our lives easier.
and we don't read the terms and conditions. And
We
yeah,
don't. We don't.
but also from a customer experience standpoint, you really expect me to read some 12 pages. If I'm signing
Right.
up at this moment, it means that I want to take action within the next 3 minutes. I cannot read 12 pages within 3 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
that. You know that, I know that. What are we doing here? But then you sign some part of your data away for convenience. And
Yes.
and that is, and what we're seeing now is that it's becoming a very big price that we're paying for that convenience.
Hmm.
To your point, Nacho, because now our stuff is out there in the dark web. I'm constantly
Yep.
getting these predator alerts and they're like, your information may be on the dark web. I'm like, what
Yes.
information? How? And
Can you
why the
tell me
dark
exactly
web?
what?
It's,
What is the dark web?
yeah, and and I think about when we talk about giving away our data and our privacy. I mean, it's funny, like Ancestry.com and 23andMe. I
No,
remember when that came
yes.
out, and I was just like, I'm kind of curious, but guess what?
Right.
I just didn't feel right about those companies. And at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, I'm paying you to take my data and DNA, and I'm paying you to do that? Like,
Hmm.
I'm not going to do this. I was like, this doesn't add up. Fast forward, we have, what is it? Ancestry.com being acquired by Blackstone, a, a real estate
Hmm.
company. Okay. Something's not right. Something in America
Right.
ain't clean. Okay.
And
Hmm.
I'm
speaking of the hacks and breaches, who recently got hacked was 23andMe.
Oh,
right.
really? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
heard they sent out letters saying, "Don't worry, please acquire for yourself a new DNA strand, and everything will be fine. We would
Right.
advise that you change your DNA because your DNA has been
And you will
hacked.
be fine. You
You'll be
will be
fine."
protected.
I love all of these biometric
But
scans. New Amazon stores want you to scan your palm.
Yes, I've
And
seen that.
and I always think, I can't wait for the palm data to be hacked. And then they send out a letter saying,
Oh
just
my
get yourself a new
goodness.
palm. It'll be fine. And then they have
right.
facial recognition is a whole thing. Just
Yeah.
get yourself a new face. Your face data got hacked. Get a new
That's
face, get a
okay.
new palm, get new DNA. You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But we made $1 billion off of it, so we're fine. Everything's
Yeah.
cool now.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
under the guise of making life convenient for you. Hey, you
Right.
don't have to stand in the on the grocery line for too long. Just scan your hand and go about your business. Yeah, I
That's
saw
right.
that in one of the supermarkets I went into, and I looked at it and I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Why would I use my palm? But I also use the face recognition on my phone, and now I'm thinking like, okay, that was probably stupid. I probably don't need to do that. And Damaris had already told me like, I'm not. Damaris has a very old iPhone, and we always get on her because of it. And she's
Because
like,
I'm
I don't
proud as an
need to
iPhone
use
owner.
my
Yeah.
face to open up my phone. And
Now
I'm
we
like,
see who the truly technically
yes,
superior sister actually was.
yes.
The
The younger one, she
She's
still
always
Sorry.
seems cool.
she's always sounding the alarm for the entire family.
Yeah. I'm right there with you, Damaris. When I go to
Thank
family
you.
gatherings, I'm always the
They're like,
life of the
okay.
party. That's going to get hacked. That's a terrible product. Don't ever do business with that company. And they're just like, would you please?
They're
Right.
like,
Can you
can we
just,
live?
can
Mark,
you turn it off for a second?
No, it's hard. You can't, once you know, you can't unknow. That's the thing.
That's
So
it.
yeah.
I have to
Hmm.
share this with my family and friends. And this is why we have a podcast, because I want to share all the things that I know. And I want you also to unknow.
Well, I mean, this is an important point, all kidding aside, Damaris, which is that the default that these companies want us to act on, sign these terms and conditions, give us your data, scan your palm, buy this iPhone, use this software. All of those defaults are for the benefit of the companies, not for the benefit of you and your family. And there are alternatives out there that actually are kind of like old school companies that actually make good products, but they're small and they're sometimes hard to find. The
Right.
ones that you see that ads on TV, like I don't really watch network TV, but I went home recently and they had a football game. It was Thanksgiving, so they had a football game
Right.
on, and half of the commercials were big tech companies. I said, man, they're really all over the airwaves now. And so if and this is not to blame anybody, I mean, people, they figure these are friendly commercials, they seem like kind of interesting products, why not use them? But for people who know what's happening behind the scenes at these companies, the answer is almost always don't do it. Don't
Mhm.
use it. Turn that off. Don't
Right.
give them permission.
Yeah.
Don't buy that product. No, 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 no. And it sounds very negative, but that's the situation we're in right now when, again, these
Mhm.
very few companies have so much power that they're trying to exploit all of us with their products. And it's the job of people who know what's happening, like both of you on this podcast are trying to raise awareness of different ways of looking at these matters. It's important work, even though people may not want to hear it all the time.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah, I have those family members and they indulge me, but they're just like, we're going to keep doing what we have to do. And that is quite all right. At least I did my part. You do with it what you want with this information.
Right.
Because I know once I consume something, I just either have to share it or I make a change or not. But then it's my choice, right? And uh, just thinking about 23andMe, when I was looking that up, I forgot well, I think this conversation triggered this. I was just doing some research, and the co-founder, and I won't even pronounce the last name, is a Polish last name, so I don't want to screw it up. I read she was married to Sergey Brin, who's co-founder of Google. I was just like, oh my
Yes.
God.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and
Yes.
yes, Nachi. And Google actually, of course, they invested in her company, like the first round or whatever. to millions of dollars. And I was just like, they're now divorced, but that's irrelevant because I'm sure throughout they're like, how can we now connect Google and 23andMe? And I'm sure at some point we're going to see that in the future of like, oh, here's how now your DNA is connected with all these Google products or Alphabet products, whatever, you know?
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
think it's Wachowski. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I think it's
yeah,
Anne
yeah, I think
Wachowski.
so. Yeah, I
But yeah, it's a
didn't
very
want
small world, and it's not a huge coincidence that a genetic surveillance company is so closely linked to a digital surveillance company. Because
right.
here's the thing that we haven't said the word surveillance yet in this conversation. We have to
Oh, I don't
say a
mind.
word
Yes,
about
please.
this,
Hmm.
because both of you
I'm
are
all about it.
correctly bringing up the problems with having to give up your data and the threat of hacks and breaches. But even if the data is not hacked or breached, even if it's kept quote unquote safely within Google
Mhm.
servers, it's still being exploited. There's
Yes.
a book a very important book that came out a few years ago called "The Age of Surveillance Capitalism" by a emeritus Harvard Business School professor named Shoshana Zuboff, and she spoke about the book on Tectonic.
Mm,
This book talks about the birth and the development of surveillance capitalism, which is the business model that Facebook, Google, Amazon, and to some extent, Microsoft and Apple all
mm,
rely on. But certainly, Facebook, Google, and Amazon are that that idea of surveillance is central to their businesses. The idea is to get as much um, data from as intrusive surveillance as you possibly can lay onto people. Get as much data about them, their bodies, their history, their families, their relationships, their geography, their habits, their purchases, their media interests. I mean, every kind
right,
of data about someone and their relationships. And you build a dossier, a surveillance dossier on each individual that you never, ever will share with that individual. And you use that dossier in order to sell off slices of it to advertisers or any other third parties. Could be government agencies,
yep,
could be foreign governments that
Mm.
are especially interested to pay for access to your private data. And so the companies over the last 10 years have been trying to figure out how to expand the reach of their surveillance gear. Now, it used to be cookies, started with cookies.
right.
So when you do a search on Google for Hawaiian vacation or something,
Mhm.
I don't know, then everywhere else you go on the web, you keep getting these ads for Hawaiian vacations because Google's surveillance is following you everywhere you went. But that wasn't enough because these companies need to keep growing and growing and growing. So then they came out with physical surveillance devices. They had to somehow convince people. And 20 years ago, this would have sounded like the stupidest sci-fi dystopia ever. The most powerful company in the world wants you to put its surveillance device on your kitchen counter so it can listen to your private conversations in your kitchen. I mean, people 20 years ago would say, that is the dumbest plot. No, that is so unrealistic. Who would ever? And now you
But here
see
we are.
Google Home, Amazon Echo,
Mhm.
the Facebook, everything Facebook does is surveillance based.
Yep,
Now Facebook has these surveillance glasses they want people to buy that's in partnership with Ray-Ban that has two little cameras on the side so they can surveil what
Oh my
people are
goodness.
doing and saying within range of the glasses. It's just proliferating everywhere, but all of
right.
that is in service of expanding their the reach of their surveillance so they can get more and more data on you, and that makes more money for them. You're as a user, or let me say more accurately, as a citizen, you should have more power to deny their access to your private data. But as you correctly said, Damaris, you get on a site and you have to use it. Let's say you have to use it to apply for a loan or apply for a job or
Mhm.
try to get into school or get your child into school. And it says, okay, before very quickly, we're gonna usher you into this wonderful wonderland of our website. But just one small thing, you just have to click that you've read this deal with the devil here, and don't worry about it. Just click. And
Just
everybody, what are you
details.
going to do? Details. You don't have time to read it, but even if you did, let's say there was a line in there that you objected to. How are you going to negotiate with that company to
Right.
take out that?
Right.
There is no negotiation. It's
No.
not a fair negotiation. It's an asymmetry of power. So your only two choices are to sign the deal with the devil or to absent yourself from that service completely and permanently. And if that's what's standing between you and a job or a school or healthcare, you're going to click the box. And so that's why so many people are being surveilled, and they had no choice. This is why this is absolutely not about blaming it. The only people I blame are the leaders in Silicon Valley who put this system
Right.
together. But people on the receiving end, it's not their fault. They had no choice. Occasionally, people have a choice of whether they want to leave the Amazon surveillance puck on their kitchen counter. And I think they should, I'll just say this. What does it weigh? About a pound or two? About like this phone? You can chuck that thing so far into the Hudson River. It is so impressive to see a surveillance puck just arcing out to the west, about halfway through. You might even hit the New
It's
Jersey
such a
line.
nice lightweight
Yes.
disc.
In fact, the pucks are flat on the bottom, and if you spin them, they'll skip. They'll skip several times.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know
I'm
what,
just saying.
what Nachi did some years ago? She actually had the audacity to gift that to me and my husband. And it was as an alarm clock.
Nachi.
I know. Not
This is
Mark.
before
This is
I
my husband.
even. This
Mark.
is before anything else, and she had asked for an alarm clock, and I'm like, oh, and it's like, oh, this is perfect.
When
You
it's
know,
gonna
they can
surveil me.
connect it.
Yeah.
And
Jeff Bezos himself is going to wake you up, Damaris.
Right.
Damaris, I've been listening to you sleep. It's time to get up.
For like 2 days, and then we were like, wait a minute. This doesn't feel right. I just listened to my intuition. I'm not gonna do it. This doesn't feel right. They're listening to everything.
I'm listening to you sleep.
pillow talk.
You only respond when I say Alexa. Bullshit.
Right.
You're listening to what I'm doing and saying,
Well, of course
no,
of course, it has to listen to everything you say.
to Alexa.
They don't
Right?
only listen to Alexa; they have to listen to all of it. And then in the last couple of years, there have been these revelations coming out that Amazon and Google and Apple, all these companies use third-party contractors in low-cost countries where there's low-cost labor to listen in to selected snippets of those surveillance devices, purely for your convenience, you understand, purely to train the models. And then you have these whistleblowers that will post to their local. So there was this expose in the Netherlands a few years ago. There was a whistleblower who came out from, I don't know, somewhere like Macedonia or something, Croatia, somewhere out there, and sent all of this audio data to this journalist in the Netherlands. And it was, this is a family podcast. I'm not going to list all the kinds of things that person heard from those devices, but they hear everything. They hear everything.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, that's low cost.
I did not know. I just
I know
thought
you
it
did,
was a
sister.
great gift.
It's still in
It
my
was
closet.
Well, if you
Yeah.
watch the commercials, it's like, yay, we got an Amazon Echo. Thanks, Dad. You know, and we're gonna, hey, and it shows the family hopping around and dancing to the tunes. And I'm sitting there looking at the TV like, surveillance, throw it out.
But you know what?
Like I said, I'm
catches
real
you?
fun.
Yeah, you know what catches you as a parent is you could use it as an intercom if you have one in your, like you said, in your kitchen and maybe in your kids' room, and you can connect to it. I used to think that was so cool. I'm like, oh yeah, that's great.
I know, you try to pull me into the Matrix, but I fought back.
Listen.
Fought back. Thank you. And thank you, sister. I still love you. No matter, you're one of my favorite people in the whole world.
I know.
So, Mark, how do we take this power back, though? for me, I say as much as possible, I try to disconnect, disengage, and delete data and apps where possible. But I mean, I personally don't feel like it's enough. I feel like I'm sure there's
Mm-hmm.
more to do. What do you recommend?
Well, this is one where we can go to other areas of life for some ideas. And as we were talking before we started recording, I did enjoy your recent episode on big food, the food industry, or food in quotes, I guess, food
Mm-hmm.
product industry,
Right?
and that a lot of companies make a lot of money creating this
Hmm.
stuff that's terrible for your health, but is designed to be addictive. So you keep eating and eating and eating.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I thought, they're good parallels between how we should relate to food and how we should relate to our technology, because in both cases you have these giant companies that are basically exploiting our weaknesses, whether they're physical or psychological, in order to make more money, and that leaves us worse off in our health and our physical and mental health. So what should we do in both cases to live healthier lives and have a better relationship to food and technology, which are both in the modern world, which are both essentials?
Right.
First, we can say there's no silver bullet, one size fits all solution. Everyone's
Hmm.
different, everybody has different needs. But maybe we can say some things on a general level. One is just what you said, Damaris, is to take an attitude of critical appraisal of the options in front of us. You said that you try to turn off the device when you can, you delete data, you delete apps you're not using. In other words, you're saying no. You're saying no, no, no a lot. And I think that's a really good practice. Also in food, when you go through the grocery store, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
80% of the grocery store, you can just say, nope,
Right.
not ingesting that. It's not healthy. But I think on the other hand, we can also say that we're not shooting for perfection. It's too hard to say every single thing I eat, every single technology I use is going to be pristine in some way, and there's going to be no linkage at all to these awful companies. It's hard to say that in this world. Everything is kind of linked up together. So I think the best we can do is to take the steps that we're able to at the moment and not be too hard on ourselves. So if you, for example, I have this iPhone here. I don't love the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love a lot of things that Apple does, but
What number
that's
iPhone is?
which it's one without the facial recognition. I think it's the
Oh, so you got an
SE.
8? Or
It's
you
a
got an
Oh,
SE?
the
it's an
SD. Okay, okay. But do you have the thumb? I have the
I
thumb.
do. Yep,
Okay.
and that's one that I
Oh, God,
also
we're like kindred
yeah
spirits.
it's and it was a compromise because I know that using the thumb scanner
Oh yeah.
habituates me to giving up my fingerprint, which is not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but if I wanted to be totally pure, that would mean getting rid of the iPhone and getting. There's a number of smartphones out there that don't use conflict minerals. They don't use
Right.
any software, proprietary software from Google or Apple. So they're out there, but I haven't done the work to make that move. On the other hand, I've gotten myself off of the major Google services. I don't use Google ever if I can avoid it. Things like that. So everybody has to make their choices. Where are you going to disengage yourself, and where do you still have to hold on to some compromises?
Right.
But if we all take some action, the best we can, to say no to these awful companies, eventually the tide is going to start turning. And the very first step is what you are both doing and what I try to do on my show. The very first step is to raise people's awareness, just so they can make their own more informed choices. Not us saying you have to, you
Right.
have to do
Right.
it, but just to
Mm-hmm.
say, do you know that this is what these companies are doing? Now you can make a better choice. If then you still decide you want to eat the Fritos,
Right.
go forth,
Consume,
because maybe you want to eat the
Right.
Fritos.
You're right.
consume red number 40. That's
Yeah,
fine. No
if that's
judgment.
what you
No
No
judgment.
judgment, because you're an adult, you get to make your own choices. This is not about a moral judgment, but
Oh,
what but what what I want to do is I want to fight the company's monopoly of the messaging. I want there to be the other side at least presented to people to say, here's another way of looking at technology. Make your own choices to possibly do something other than what these companies want you to do. And over time, I mean, it could take a lifetime, but over time, I think people eventually will start making better choices with technology. I hope.
yeah, I hope so too. And to your point, that's absolutely what we try to share is it is to raise awareness and also just so that people could make more informed decisions. But again, ultimately, it's your choice. And I am one that I am resistant to authority. I want to control what I do, how I do it, when I do it, not because you told me to do it. So, the the fastest way, the way my husband likes to annoy me is he'll tell me what to do as I'm about to do it already. So then I almost don't want to do it, and he knows it's a trigger. But since I know what he's trying to do, I do it
You're like, I'm
anyway.
gonna ignore you.
He's like, "Go to bed," and I'm already. But I say all that just because I don't want. I want people not to be overwhelmed, but just to be aware. And I know this is one of those topics similar to big food, where technology it's a part of our lives, right? And how could we really avoid using it? And it's not about avoiding not using it. It's just about how we use it, being judicious about it, discerning. And so when I think about technology, I mean, is it, I don't want to feel like it's the only solution for societal problems, but maybe there's a way in which we can integrate it into our lives that is much more balanced. And I'll say that I was listening to one of your podcast episodes, and it was with Coco Krume, and she's the author of Optimal Illusions. And I forgot why I selected this one, and I was happy that I did because it was in that conversation where her book focuses on like these technology, or not even technology companies, but just like industries in general, their quest for optimization. And in doing so, when we reach for a solution that's to a very specific problem and frame that problem, we then actually don't find the solution inside that frame. It lies outside of that. And it, to me, it reminded me of how we're so specific with how we try to approach issues with climate or world hunger or just things, anything. And we're so specific with certain things that we actually miss how to address it because it's outside, and it's a matter of looking at these things holistically, very much similar to Western medicine. And you'll hear me throughout episodes speak about that, where Western medicine is very much focus on the symptom versus what is
Hmm.
the root cause. And this is very much like when I heard that conversation with her, I was like, yes, you're absolutely right with the fact that we're so focused on the hyper optimization that we lose sight of how we can actually address something. Like, I think electric vehicles is a perfect example of that, where we don't even have the proper power grid to support electric vehicles, but we're now exploiting the minerals to create these batteries for electric vehicles and are causing a whole other set of societal problems in Congo and other places. And China's making these very same batteries for electric vehicles using coal, you know, coal to produce them. And I'm just like, okay, this doesn't make sense if this is supposed to be for, climate change. So, but
Right.
instead of addressing our infrastructure, so you're causing more environmental problems trying to create these electric vehicles when we don't even have an infrastructure to support them. So,
Yeah, the um the problem of climate change and sustainability is another parallel track to what we're talking about with technology,
Right.
even food. What actions should we take to live more sustainable lives? And man, that's a tough one. And this
It is.
growth at any
It is.
cost, infinite growth economy, which is definitely not sustainable. Just we're the day we happen to be recording this. Just last night, I aired an interview with a European journalist named Guillaume Pitron, who wrote a book about the environmental impacts of digital technology. Fascinating book, talking about all of the minerals and metals that go into smartphones and chips and everything, all of the water that it takes to manufacture the devices, all the water it takes to cool the data centers where Amazon and Facebook and Google store all their surveillance data, the spread of data centers, the taxing of the electricity grid, the power grid. Do you know, in some countries, I think it was Ireland, the data centers, the big tech data, these are data centers for American big tech companies, take a sizable percentage of all of the power in the entire country are devoted to the data centers. Did you know that?
No.
Worldwide,
Oh, gosh.
worldwide, the power draw for digital is greater than that of aviation. 4% of our energy worldwide goes to digital. And I mean, you should listen to that interview if you
I will. Okay.
if you want to hear some nightmare scenario. This yeah,
Right. Just kidding,
I'm
guys.
telling
No.
you. I'm telling you, an iPhone also will skip very nicely on the surface of the Hudson River. You can just kind of, it's in the wrist. You just kind of flick it, and
Right.
you're going to want to throw your devices in the Hudson River, because you think the economy and electric vehicles not sustainable. Totally correct. What about just the internet? Everybody used to think, well,
Yeah.
the internet is like it's in the cloud.
Yeah.
There's no
But what's the
the
cloud?
environmental
Servers.
is
Right.
servers. And
Yeah.
everything that you do has another server to get all the surveillance data off of it. So we are completely unsustainable. The root cause here is nothing that any of us individually can do anything about, but we have this societally, we have this flawed vision of infinite growth, and you cannot have a system of finite resources support an economy of infinite growth. It's just anyone can see that. So I don't know I think, this is the world that we have to live in. We have to choose our battles and do the best we can. But my attitude is generally to be skeptical of anything and everything that I hear from any of these companies. And my
Yes.
default is going to say no, until once in a while I might say, well, okay, maybe just this once.
Right.
No, and that's part of the reason also why I don't upgrade my phones. Why? Because you're just trying to push consumerism on me because you want more.
Exactly.
You want more of my money. But really, do I need one? No. And I feel like those are
Right.
the ways that we as individuals like you said, this is our way to fight back, right? Those smaller no's can grow. So do you need that next iPhone, whatever 15 that's going to be out? No, you really don't. And think about those countries and those poor children mining that cobalt. All that
It's true.
stuff. It's not just, electric vehicles. You're right. That was already an issue with phones and computers and the like, but electric vehicles just exacerbated it even more.
You're right. Nightmares, all of us, nightmares tonight. But we'll get through it.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
But it makes you think about it, right? Because like you said, Mark, you don't realize that with all this growth, there's this other things that's being impacted. And when you start to kind of look at how it's affecting society as a whole, it makes you think, makes you think twice before buying a new device, or, you know, capturing any, giving away your information without having that knowledge base on what it's really being used for. And I hope that people will just take this information and start to think twice and maybe start enacting some of those no's. I know for me, I'm here thinking like, maybe I need to remove this facial recognition off of my phone.
All of my family members make fun of me. I mean, every time I go to a family event, it's just like, oh, you still got that iPhone 8? Yes, I love her. Yeah, she's great. She's good. I don't need that.
I feel like we also have to think about that as well when we're, dealing with children and the amount of what they're consuming on the internet.
Yeah, that's another.
Yeah,
that's a whole other category.
Mm-hmm.
Kids.
I was gonna say, Mark, we'll need to have you back for that because I know I forwarded Nachi your last newsletter. I was like,
No,
I could just
if you want to show your family something fun. They say, what's the matter with the facial rec on an iPhone? Go and look up on the Apple website their page on Face ID, which is their facial rec system on the iPhone, and it says in little print near the bottom of the page, "Don't worry, the lasers that we shoot out at your eyes are not strong
Mark,
enough
I
to
need
do
you to
any
stop.
retinal damage.
I need
Don't
you to stop
worry.
right now.
The lasers."
No.
Yes,
And I'm going, I read that and I go, oh, thank goodness that the lasers that you were shooting into my retina are not doing damage. Thank you, Apple. That is so generous of you.
Oh my
You feel
God.
so much better.
I have a buddy. He's out in Michigan. He runs this company called Reflectacles, and these are anti-surveillance glasses that have lenses that block all the infrared and lasers and all the crazy stuff that they shoot into your eyes, so that you, and they also work as sunglasses. I have a pair here at home. I mean, Damaris, you should wear those at the next family gathering.
Oh my God, yes. Yes, absolutely. I'm so ready at the July 4th get together. I'm gonna walk in there with my shades. They're like, yeah.
I never take these off. You're never gonna shoot your lasers into my eyes.
You're never gonna get me. You're never gonna get me.
Nope.
Right.
No, it also means your phone will never recognize you.
Right. That's why I don't use that's it.
That's it.
So, I think there needs to be a balance, right? I mean, we've been talking about this, and I think discussing how we can get there. Part of it is this idea of consumerism and kind of disconnecting the whole idea of status with what it is that you buy. Because again, is there a need for this stuff, for everything that you buy? And maybe not. And to your point, Nachi, it's about just being a little bit more judicious and critical for those things that you do and want to participate in. I mean, I personally like to take mandatory breaks, go on do not disturb, things like to try to balance out what it is, how I engage with technology. And I think everybody's journey has to be unique in their own. But Mark, you shared a lot of good stuff, and I'm wondering, is there anything else that you think people should consider as they try to balance out this world of digital and technology and their place in society with that?
Well, I think it comes down to an attitude where people, they take charge of their destiny. I don't know the right way to say it, but these devices want to tell us, oh, just relax, go to sleep, we'll take care of it, we'll filter everything for you, we'll tell you what's important. And a better attitude is to say, no, you don't understand. Your phone, first of all, you don't talk to me, okay? I don't want any talking phone. You're a piece of metal. You can miss me with all that, okay? There was a meme somewhere. I've posted it a couple of times on my radio show playlist. And it's this meme, sometimes memes say crazy things. And it's like this. It says something like, I don't want to hear any speech from digital devices. I am a divine being.
Okay.
You are not allowed to speak in my divine tongue.
Right,
And that's kind
right.
of how I feel. You know what? I'm the human being here. You're the hammer. The hammer can shut up right now, okay?
Yes,
And
Stay in your
but
lane.
yes, stay in your
stay in
lane.
your lane.
And when I have a
Absolutely.
nail, I'll let you know,
Right.
okay?
That's
But otherwise, you stay on the workbench. And I really mean this. All of these tools, these
Mhm.
companies are trying to get them to arrogate themselves to the status of person or even above. You
Right.
hear weird religious cultish stuff coming out of Silicon Valley. The AI is
Mhm.
God.
Mhm.
Wait a second, God.
Yeah,
Wait a
time out.
second.
Time
All
out.
right. All right.
Let's reel this back.
I studied computer science. There's no God in your little Python code, all right? You
Right.
guys can settle down a little bit. These phones, they are tools and they can help from time to time. But our our attitude has to be, I will use the tool when it is time. But I am not ruled by the phone. This is the attitude that we should aspire to. I am not going to be ruled by this thing. And if it tries, I'm going to turn off all the alerts. I'm going to delete all the unnecessary apps. And I'm going to put this thing in a drawer somewhere until I'm ready to use it. To reassert our leadership as people, as divine beings, that
Right.
we are the ones who are going to chart our course in life. And the tools will take a distant third or fourth place that we will draw on in minute occasional ways. I think that's the attitude I'm aspiring to get to. And it's hard because that's exactly the opposite of what these trillion-dollar companies want you to do.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
similar to Damaris, I also limit myself to certain use of apps or the phone itself. Like I put a do not disturb after a certain time. But I also think about my children, right? And other children where they have access to so much information out there and just the consumption. They, as adults, we know how to balance. At least some of us do, in terms of consuming what's out there. But children don't. I could tell my kids 20 million times, you need to be off by such and such time. And one of the things that I do with them is that I limit their use of apps, and their phone turns off right, right before they're supposed to get ready for bed because they don't need to be on the phone.
You know, prepare yourself. Like,
Yes.
get used to his content. This is what he's about. Yeah, he's part of our tribe. He's there.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets extra dark, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
no kidding at all how bad it
No.
Hmm.
gets when we talk about kids and this stuff. Yeah, I'm happy to come back. That would be a whole other
Mhm.
conversation. Um, it's very difficult. My wife and I have a teenage son, and
Hmm.
it's not reasonable to say you're never going to use
Right.
these
Right.
services. On the other hand, these services are gateways to some of the absolute worst outcomes,
Right.
Yes.
and the leadership in Silicon Valley knows it, and
Hmm.
they continue investing in it. That's what is
Yeah.
so horrifying.
Right.
But we can get into the we can get
Yeah.
into
I just think
Not
about it. It's
not
it's
an AI, which is yeah. But
yeah.
I know, I know. But I actually feel like we covered a lot though in very foundational stuff that I think can help a lot of folks out there with what it is that how they try to balance out their life and remember that they are divine beings. We to your point, Mark, I know you said it and it was funny, but we are human beings, um, and I know I'm a highly favored child of the Most High, so I hope people consider themselves that way too.
Right.
But it's important to put that in perspective, right? That you don't need to be controlled by anything. You control yourself, not a device, technology, or it's you. So before we close out, Mark, I would love for you to share again with where people can find you. And
Well, first, I just want to say thanks to both of you, Nachi and Damaris, for having me on. I'm a fan of the show, and it's
Absolutely.
such a pleasure to talk with both of you. Um, as for my own material, my email newsletter, which is free and non-advertised, no surveillance, is at creativegood.com. That's all one word, creativegood.com. And there's a sign up there on the homepage. That's the email newsletter I've been writing for 25 plus years now. My radio show has a website at tectonic.fm. That's TECH tonic.fm. It's kind of like tectonic plates, but with a H in the middle to make it tectonic.fm plates.
So clever.
And that has the podcast link and the information anybody in the New York area wants to tune into the FM version of it. And those are, I have some other stuff, but those are the two main things I like to point people to.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you again for being a guest on our show. We are honored and we really appreciate it. And you shared a lot of good stuff that I hope our listeners could take away and do some good with that. And so
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I just want to close out with how we always do. And we remind our listeners that there's a lot of noise out there, but our message is consistent. Stop getting distracted by the smoke and mirrors. Tune out the noise and focus on your purpose in life, what it is that brings you joy in life. So focus on that and vibrate higher. And always thank you for listening.